So UNIFIL is associated with the UN. They're the Irish peacekeeping force that is on the border with Lebanon right now. Okay, so the IOF earlier this week is like, scram, you have to leave, you have to leave. The Irish peacekeepers were like, nah, we're not leaving. So they threatened them, and then they fired at them. So this hack, the geopolitical strategist who is from Minnesota but calls himself Israeli, actually wrote this on X after it came out that the Irish peacekeeping force was refusing to leave. Israel should carpet bomb the Irish area and then drop napalm on it. I am never going to not be amazed at the ease in which they say genocidal shit, okay? Like, we know they do. Just go on X and translate any Hebrew tweet into English and you're going to be like, oh my gosh. But like, they say stuff like this all the time. It's never going to not amaze me how deranged it is. They are the peacekeeping force. And you guys wanted them to leave because you wanted to terrorize Lebanon more and Lebanese civilians. And the Irish said nah, as they should. And this is your response? Glad to know this senior fellow at the Gold Institute and a geopolitical analyst and political strategist that these are his views and that this is how he thinks policy should work. So the Irish president, who is this very jolly and nice looking old guy, said it was outrageous of Israel to threaten the peacekeepers in Lebanon. Michael D. Higgins is his name. Okay. The Israeli regime rejects criticism, saying that claims that the IOF had threatened UNIFIL forces were unfounded and inflammatory. Except it's not. They just lie because they know that there's no consequences for their impunity and war crimes. Mr. Higgins said, it is outrageous that the IOF have threatened the peacekeeping force and sought to have them evacuate the villages they are defending. Indeed, the Israeli regime is demanding that the entire UNIFIL operating under UN mandate walk away. The Israeli regime's embassy in Dublin strongly criticized the president's intervention. It's amazing how even the embassy in Dublin, they always are so entitled and just deny everything and never take accountability for anything. The IOF fires on a UN peacekeeping mission after threatening them to leave when they are supposed to be there, and their embassy turns around and goes, that's not true, how dare you? I'm never gonna also not be amazed at their ability to be the aggressor and so vicious, but also a victim at the same time, right? Like here, it's all victim. It's all, how dare you say something so inflammatory? And then that guy on Twitter is like, just drop napalm on them bitches. And then, of course, they put out this statement, which is a lie. Because anything that starts with the Israeli embassy or the IOF said, you know there's going to be an avalanche of lies coming after it. On Saturday, the president said Defense Forces members, and in this case, this is President Higgins of Ireland talking about the Irish peacekeepers. He said they are risking their lives and their families are making this sacrifice on behalf of defenseless civilians in southern Lebanese villages. We all daily think of them and the importance of their safety and provisions.
Escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has already put the diplomatic world on edge, but developments today mark the gravest confrontation between Israel and the UN's peacekeeping force, UNIFIL, in almost 20 years. UNIFIL said 2 of its peacekeepers were injured at their headquarters, sustaining minor injuries after an Israeli tank fired at an observation tower. It added that Israeli forces had fired at a UN outpost elsewhere along the border, hitting the entrance as peacekeepers sheltered inside, having already shot at the cameras mounted outside. The Irish Defence Forces confirmed that its own personnel were not among those injured, but domestically there has been a stern response.
This is unacceptable. Peacekeeping is the most noblest thing anyone can do. Our soldiers are there, UN peacekeeping soldiers are there to keep the peace at the invitation of both sides to this conflict.
It's now, in my opinion, at a tipping point, at a moment where clear action from the international community is needed.
All of us must send thoughts with all of those troops now under fire.
So in that last statement, that woman was like, oh, there needs to be a response from the international community. No, they don't do anything. We've learned that. The international community doesn't do shit. I don't even know why the UN is there, because the Israeli regime doesn't have to abide by any of the rules. That's why they felt so confident firing on UNIFIL UN peacekeepers, because they know that even though that's insane, they know they're going to get away with it. This is not only an insult to the most important global institution to which 193 members are committed, but it's also an insult to the soldiers and their family who have taken risks so that we might all live in peace and protect the most vulnerable. Yeah, but they don't care about that. They don't care about that. These Irish peacekeepers are just standing in their way because they are literally invading Lebanon. These Irish peacekeepers are just getting in their way of further invading Lebanon. The Irish government has protested strongly to the Israeli regime to withdraw its troops from close to an outpost on the border with Lebanon, which is guarded by the Irish UNIFIL troops. Ty Nastey and Minister for Defense Mikhail Martin said that the safety of the Irish troops remained the highest priority and that he was gravely concerned that in the current heightened situation, there was potential for missiles to go in the wrong direction. Or, the fact that they fired at them or fired at their cameras, that's convenient that they fired at the cameras first. They're just mad that the Irish peacekeepers are there to begin with, and they're mad because they're so entitled that when they told them to leave and evacuate, that the Irish peacekeepers said no. So they want to punish them for saying no. I know it's kind of confusing because IDF is supposedly Israeli Defense Forces, but IDF is also the Irish Defense Forces for the UN peacekeepers. But for the purposes of generally talking about it accurately, I will refer to the Israelis as IOF because that is what they are, Israeli Occupation Forces. In this case, IDF for the Irish peacekeepers is appropriate because they are there to defend civilians in Lebanon. Over the past few days, platoons from the IOF have breached the blue line that divides Lebanon from the Israeli regime in several areas, including at the Irish battalion post known as 652. But you know what they're going to say, right? Whenever they breach something, break international law, do something that they said they previously weren't going to do, they're looking for Hezbollah. Is Hezbollah using the Irish peacekeepers as human shields? We're still doing the human shields routine, right? But the thing is nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. There's going to be no consequences for the IOF for doing this. There's a few condemnations, as you saw, from Irish lawmakers, but at the end of the day, they're firing at UN peacekeepers because they were mad that they wouldn't leave, and nothing is going to happen because for the Israeli regime, there is never any accountability. They are the aggressors and also always and forever the victims.